Hey, Rafat from CurlyBrackets here. In this tutorial, I'm going to be showing you how to make a very simple game using a programming language called JavaScript. Let's take a look at how the game works. So the game here, you have a big image of a cookie, you press it, and the score goes up. This is actually based on a very popular game called Cookie Clicker, which you can play by searching for Cookie Clicker on Google. This is a very simple version of it. Now, this tutorial is meant for beginners. So if you've never ever programmed before, or maybe you've done a little bit of programming before in a different language like Scratch or something like that, this is a great place to start. But if you've done some programming before and you already know some JavaScript, you're probably already going to know a lot of the things in this tutorial. So if you're ready, let's get started. Now, before we can start coding, we actually need a place where we can write and run our code. Now, there are several different ways of doing this, but what I think is the easiest way is by using a service called Replid. Now, head on over to repl.it, and we need to first make an account. So you can sign up here, and see, it's auto-filling this. I don't want that. All you're going to need is a username, email, and password, and then you just press sign up. Once you've done that, you can, since I already have an account, I can just log in with mine. And then you'll see something like this. Because you don't have any projects, you might say something like, getting started or start a new Replit. In any case, in order to create a new project, also called a new REPL, is you can go to this button up here on the top right corner and create a new project. Now, in coding, there are several different languages, of course. There's different languages for different things. We're going to be using a language called JavaScript to make our game. And JavaScript is actually a special language because it, if you're running a browser, it runs JavaScript. So it's very easy to run it. Now, if you wanted to start a new REPL, you could just press HTML, CSS, and JavaScript as the language, and then call it something, and then create REPL. But I'm going to make it even easier for you, because we need some files to get started with this game development, and I've already actually gone ahead and made that for you. So on the screen right now, I'm going to show which URL you can go to get that project. And I'm also going to include it in the description below, so you can click that to get started. And let's see here. So I'm going to copy it from this side and go here. So this is the one. I created a thing called Clicker Starter Template. So it has all the stuff that we need to get started. So we're actually going to be using something called P5, which is something that we're going to be using on top of JavaScript that makes it really simple to get started making fun games easily with JavaScript. So there's going to be 3 different files here. As we can see on the left side, there's an HTML file, which is kind of the website that contains the game. And then there's a cookie image that we're going to use in the game. And then there's a script.js file, which is where we are going to be writing all of our code. So when you go to this template that I've provided for you, up here, it should say fork, right? For me, it says invite because this is my project, but for you, it should say fork. Press that button, and what that will do is that it will create an exact copy for you using my templates. It's going to copy all the code and all the files and then put it under your name so that you can get started coding really fast. So do that now. And then now, once you've done that, it should say your username here and then Clicker Starter Template. So let's see here. I want to make it, let me first go through how Replit works, because you might be using it for the first time. So really, there's 3 things that are going on here. We have the files on the left side. And since we're only going to be working in the script.js file, I can actually hide this file manager by just pressing on this icon, and then that hides it. And then in the middle here, this is where we're going to be writing all of our code. And as you'll see, there's already some code that I provided for you to get started with. So this is where the code is written. You'll also notice that there are some numbers on the left side. That is just saying which line you're on. So we're seeing that it's a total of 7 lines so far. And then on the right side, this is where you can preview your code. So if I run this button right now, if I press the run button, which is going to run the code that we've written, it's going to give us this gray box, which is what this code produces for us. Now, I want to make it easy for you to watch this tutorial, so I want to make the text as big as possible. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go onto this preview part, and I'm going to press this button right here, open in a new tab. That's going to open up a new tab so that I can do all of the previewing in this tab, and all the development in this tab is going to be much easier for me. A lot easier for me is what I meant to say. But you got to remember, sometimes REPL doesn't update this properly. So make sure when you fork this that when you if you press the open in a new tab, you want to make sure that up in the URL it doesn't say Team Curly, which is our username, that it says your username. And if it doesn't do that, you want to go up here and you want to copy your username, which you'll find up here, and then you can just paste it here. So this is the name of your this is the name of your project, and this is your username. So just make sure, because I know a lot of people have some issues with that it doesn't update. Okay, so we are ready to get started. So I'm gonna get rid of this, and I am gonna zoom in really closely here so we can see all of this really well. Great. Okay, so we have a lot of stuff here. We have 7 lines of code, and you might not understand any of it right now, and that's okay. We're gonna slowly, as we go on, we're gonna kind of take apart this code, and we're gonna build on top of it, and we're gonna try to understand what it says. But there's already some things that we can play around with, and this is a great way to learn. Is that a lot of times in programming, in coding, when you're working on things, even really good developers don't understand everything. But one way to learn is just take some code that maybe you don't understand a lot of it and start messing around with it a little bit. Messing around with the values a little bit, and take some things that you do understand and just start from here. So let's look at it look at the code with that attitude. So here I can see that I have something called background here, and it has a value in here. So I'm guessing that it's probably has to do something with the background. So right now, how does it look? If I go to my preview, it's just a gray box. So maybe I'm thinking this probably has something to do with the color in the background. Let me check. Let me change this to something that's very different from 100. Let me do 0 here. And then let's go here. It's not going to automatically refresh this for you, so you're going to have to do it manually. You can just press the reload button up here, or just do Control R on your keyboard. I'm going to press this. So it changed the background to black. So now I know for sure that this button right here is somehow controlling the color of the background. So let me go higher than 100, because 100 I know is a gray color. So let's do 200. Okay, that's a light gray. So this looks like it's going to white. And in fact, the highest number you can put in here is 255, which is going to give you a pure white like this. Now, let's see here. So we know how to change the color of the background now. But what if we wanted an actual color? We don't want black and white and gray. We want green, red, whatever. Well, one value is not going to do it for that. We're going to need 3 different values. Now, you might remember from school that everyone learns about the primary colors, right? Now, the computer also uses some concept of primary colors, and it wants you to give it 3 different values. If you want colors, it wants you to give it the amount of red that you want, the amount of green, and then the amount of blue. That's also referred to as RGB for short. So let's try that. Now, right now it looks like I can only put in one number here though, 255. How do I put in three numbers? Well, we can put in the first number, and let's just put 255 there. And then I can separate it by putting a comma there. Now I can put in the second value, and let me put in here just a 0. And then I can put in comma again and then put 0. So what am I doing here? Well, I'm saying to this thing called background, give me this color. So remember, the first value is red, R. So I've turned red all the way up to 255. And then I'm saying, don't give me any of green, and then don't give me any of blue by just putting in 0, which is the lowest value that you can have. So now, if this is done correctly, I should get a red color. Let me see. Yes, I do. I have a pure red background. Now, what could you do here? Well, you could start playing around with this, right? You could try this, 0 and 255. What is that going to give us? That's going to give us green. So I'm just to go faster. I'm not going to press on this each time. I'm just going to press Control R. Now, if you're on a Mac, though, you want to do Command R. Windows, Control R. There we go, green. Okay, so what if we did something like, I don't know, 150, and then 121, and then we did 220. What is this going to give us? Well, actually, I don't really know, because it's very hard for me to, in my mind, calculate what this is going to give us, right? So let me try. I actually have no idea what this is going to give us. Okay, this gave us a nice purple color. Now you can already probably be asking yourself the question, am I supposed to know exactly the values in my head? And am I supposed to try like a bunch of different values here to get the exact right combination, to get the exact right color that I want? No. There's no point in that, right? We're using a computer. Computers are powerful. They should be able to do this in a much easier way. Now, if we open up a new tab, so let's open up an entirely new tab and then go to Google. And if you go here and search for color picker, Google has this really nice color palette here that will let you use this thing to get exactly the color that you want. So I'm going to just go here and get a nice, actually I think purple looks pretty good. I'm going to get this purple color. Now you'll notice down below here that it's giving you some values, and most of those are numbers. These are actually different ways of representing this color in the form of text. And you'll see there's a hex way. And you might have actually seen this before if you've done any Photoshop or anything like that, or any other image editing programs. A lot of times you'll see this. And then there's the RGB version of it, which is what we want. These are the 3 different values that are going to give us exactly this color. And then there are some other ways of doing it too. But these 2 ways are the most popular ones. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to copy this thing. Right click and copy. And of course, you can also go faster by just doing Command C or Control C if you're on a Windows. So copy that and then go here. And then I am going to get rid of this and then paste in what I just copied. So that's going to be Control V. Paste that in. And then let's take a look. Should actually be quite similar because it's also a purple color, but it's actually quite a different shade of purple. Awesome. So now we have our background. So that is how you can play with colors. That's how you can get different sorts of colors in your game. Now let's take a look at another line, which is line number 2. This one right here. What is this saying? Well, this is saying create canvas. Well, if you're a painter, before you can paint your painting, paint your masterpiece, you actually need a thing where you can actually paint your thing on, paint your painting on. That thing is called a canvas. And the same way that a painter needs a canvas to get started making a painting, a game developer needs a canvas to start building his or her game. So this is how we can create our canvas, by using this thing. Now we're going to get to a little bit later what this thing is, because you can see that there's a similarity between this and this. It looks like that there is some name for this thing, and then it takes some input by putting it inside of these brackets, and then it gives you a result from that. That we'll see is later on, a little bit in this video. It's called a function, which you can see here. These are actually also functions. And we'll see a little bit closer how they work and how we can write our own. So this thing, create canvas, is taking in two inputs, 500 and 500, separated by a comma. I wonder what would happen if we changed this value. So let's try. Let's change this to 200 instead. Let's go here and refresh again. Hey, okay. So the width changed. It's not a square anymore, it's a rectangle. Okay. So let me do one other. Let's do 800. And 800, much bigger, much wider. Okay, so now I'm sure. The first number is controlling the width of the canvas. All right? So that you can probably deduce what the other number is doing. So let me do 200 here again. And that, of course, is the height. The two things we need to create a canvas is, of course, the width and the height of the canvas, because remember, this is 2 dimensions. All right, so I'm going to say, you know what, I'm just going to say 500, 500. Feel free to use any other values that you want. Okay, so refresh, 500. You know what, I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. It's easier for us to see. Okay, so we got our basic canvas set up with the color that we like. What is the next step? Well, we're making a cookie clicker game. We're making a clicker game, so we definitely need a cookie. And I've actually already gone ahead and provided an image of a cookie for you. So just to remind you here, on the left side, there's the file manager. If we go in there, we'll see there is a cookie.png provided for us already. So let's now look at how we can get this cookie image into our game. So let's go back to script.js and get rid of this, and we can zoom in like that. All right. So before I can load in the image to use it in the game, I need a way to refer to the cookie by something. I wonder how I do that. Well, let's think about this. So if you have a game, you could have images. So you can have an image of a cookie. You might want to change that image. You might want to make it bigger, smaller, or move it around. You might have other things like, let's say it's a slightly more sophisticated game than just a cookie clicker. There might be enemies. There might be different objects. There's a lot of things to keep track of, right? So you need a way to create something and then refer to it so that you can manipulate it. So you want to create something like a player, and then you want to be able to move it around, right? You want to be able to change it, do things with it. That whole concept, in order to save information, which can be reused and manipulated, is in programming called variables. So a variable is something that you create and that you give it some value, and then you can use it in your game. So let's go ahead and create our very first variable. So you want to go at the very top of your project up here, and then press return 2 times, 1, 2, and then I'm going to go up here, and now I'm going to create my variable. Now inside of JavaScript, you can create variables by using the keyword var. If you notice, it's going to light up blue, which means that it's a JavaScript inbuilt thing. If you wrote it wrong, like war or something like that, you know that you didn't write it right by seeing that it didn't light up blue. So Replid here is trying to help us to avoid spelling mistakes. So anyway, var like this. Okay, that's the first step. Now we're telling JavaScript, make me a variable. Now, that's not all the information though, because you need to now call your variable something. It has to have a name. And this is entirely up to you. So let me press space and then call it something. Now, since this is going to be the image of the cookie, I'm just going to call it cookie. That seems like a very good name for me. Var cookie. Now you can call it anything. If you are making a donut clicker, you could call it donut. You could call it, I don't know, you could call it John. You could call it fun. You can call it whatever. But there are some rules. You can't use spaces. So if your name was Donald Trump, you couldn't write Donald Trump like this. So the space is what is not allowed here, because here JavaScript is going to get confused. Are you trying to refer to two different things? Because space means you're separating it. I'm confused. This is going to not work. But if you did this, Donald Trump, this would work. So anyway, let's go to here and then call it cookie. So now I have created the variable. Now let me go here and then refresh, and nothing happens. Why didn't it show the image of the cookie? Well, computers are the most literal machines ever invented. They will do exactly what you say and nothing else. Did we tell it to show the image of the cookie? No, we just created a variable. So we have to do the rest. So the second step here is to go inside of this thing called setup, which is a function, inside of here. And when I say inside, it means that you need to be inside of these curly brackets. So if you're writing something here, it means you're outside. If you're writing something here, it means you're outside. But if you're writing something here, it means you're inside, because it's between this and between this. This is how kind of JavaScript knows what is going inside of this setup part of the code, the setup function. So let's remove this, because this is definitely not going to work. And here, let's say cookie. Now I want to give the cookie variable some value. In order to do that, we can use the equal sign like this. And then we have to use something to be able to get that cookie image that we have uploaded and then put it inside of this. Now, JavaScript and P5, more specifically, what we're using here to create this game, makes it really simple for us. They give us this function called load image, and it's written like this. Remember, there's a capital I here, and it's all written in one like this. And then, because it's a function, it has those brackets, because it needs to be able to take inputs. And in here, you actually give it the name of the image. Now, what is that image name? I think I forgot. Go here, and it's called cookie.png. All right, let me go back here then and write that. Now, let me try this, cookie.png. Okay, refresh. Okay, the thing went away. It doesn't work. Well, there is a reason for that, because here, we just wrote cookie.png. Now, JavaScript is going to get a little bit confused again. Because remember, it's a very literal language. It's a literal machine. Here it thinks you're referring to something like cookie. And for me, it looks like a variable that you're referring to. Are you referring to a variable? We're not really referring to a variable. We're referring to the name of the image that we have. So we got to write this thing differently. We have to add quotation marks here at the beginning, at the end, and that's going to light up the text to be brown. So now if we go, we still don't see the cookie image because we haven't completed the last step, which is actually to tell it to show the cookie. But at least we know it works because this popped up again. All right, so let's take a look at the last thing. Now, what I want to do here is go inside of the draw function and draw the image of the cookie. So I'm going to go below background here, and I'm going to write image. Now, this is, again, a function that comes with, and you can use this function to draw an image. So let me write this. It's a function. It needs that. And let me give it some input. The first thing I want to tell it is what image do I want to show? Well, I've already got this variable that I made called cookie that is referring to that, right? So I can just write cookie here. Now, is this going to work? Let's take a look. No image of a cookie, so it doesn't work. Why is that? Again, computers, they do exactly what you want, or not exactly what you want. That would be great if you did exactly what they want. They do exactly what you tell it to do, nothing more, nothing less. Now here we haven't given it all the information that it needs. Because think about it. Let's say that you have a paper and you wanted to tell someone to draw a cookie on the paper. Well, in the case of a human being, they would be able to say, well, the middle is a nice place to draw the cookie, right? So they might just take that information and just draw it in the middle of the page. But we're not dealing with humans, we're dealing with computers. We have to tell it exactly where we want it to draw the image of the cookie. So let's take a look here. We have a box. We have the canvas. How can we tell it to draw the image of the cookie somewhere? Well, let's use the cursor. Okay, so let's say that we wanted it to draw the image of the cookie right here. How much information do we need it to give? Well, if we have it here, we really need two pieces of information. We need, if we go up here, we need to give it how far are you from this origin point on to the right. So these are like, we're dealing with pixels here, distance. So how many pixels? This is maybe, I don't know, 100 pixels or something like that. Okay, so go 100 pixels to the right and then go 100 pixels down. So that's the two pieces of information that you need. Now, if you've done some math in school and if you've reached the coordinate system and all that kind of stuff, you might have already heard about X's and Y. You know how we have a coordinate system in 2 dimensions where you have the x-axis and the y-axis? It's kind of the same thing here. So this line along here, this one going left to right, is often referred to as the x, and then the up and down is the y. And it starts from 0 up here. So x is 0, and then it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 100, 200, 300, and all the way up to 500, because we know that our canvas is 500 pixels wide. Same thing up here with y. It starts here, 0, goes down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 100, 200, 300, and all the way down to 500. So let's use that. So here we can say comma, and then we can first give it the x value. So here I'm going to say 50. And then I'm going to also say 50 here. So let's see now. Refresh. Hey, there it is. Now, it's a little bit large. The image is very large. So I want to definitely fix that. Now you might have the same thing. If you're using a different image than me, you might have a very large image, in which case it's going to be like this. And we can fix this. So if we go here, there are two other things that we can give it. Another value here, which is going to be the width of the image and then the height of the image. So let's say we give it 400 and then 400. 400 width, 400 height. Refresh. And there we are. Perfect. We have our cookie on the canvas. Very good. So here I'm going to take a little break. I think you should too. You've been very good at coding so far. And I'm going to come back and we're going to make this game work so that we can actually add a score and then make it so that when we press it, it actually goes up. So I'll see you soon. And we are back. So now we want to add a score to the game. So the score is basically going to be how many times we have clicked on the cookie. So let's take a look here. We want to put a number up here on the top left corner. So that number is going to keep track of how many clicks. So that looks like something we should put in a variable or make a variable for. So I'm going to go ahead and create the second variable for this project. And we can go and press return here, make a new line. I'm going to write var, I'm going to just call it score. Seems like a good name for this. Here I'm going to go and inside of the setup function. So remember here, there's kind of this three-step process. First, you create the variable. You do it up here. And then you set it equal to something inside of the setup function. And then you actually use it inside of draw so it actually does something or it is actually shown in the game. So let's do the second step now. Just do score equals what? Well, the score should start at 0, I think. So I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then here, I'm going to do... I'm going to use a function that is similar to image, but it's called text. So I'm going to say text, and then I'm going to say, what do I want to show? What type of text do I want to show? Well, I want to show the score. So I'm going to say score, and then comma. Then again, we got the thing where we need to place it somewhere, you know, give it an X and a Y, like that. So I'm going to give it, I don't know. I want to give it small values here, so 20 and 30 maybe. Let's see if that does anything. Refresh. Well, that actually works. There is a little 0 up here. Now I think it's a little bit too small. You can barely see it, so I'm going to make it bigger. So I'm going to go back here, and then before I write this, I'm going to go after this line, press return. And then I'm going to write text size. So what this is going to do, it's going to change the text size to something else than the default. The default is really, really small. So here we can write a number like 40. Let's try that. Go back here, refresh. Looks much better. But it's a little bit cut off at the top. So I'm going to move it below like this or down. That means that I have to change this value right here, the second one. So let's make it a little bit higher, 50 maybe. That looks pretty good. I'm gonna make it go up just a tiny bit, so maybe 45. And yeah, that's pretty good. Looks quite nice. So this is something that you have to do all the time in programming, is that you got to play with the values. You know, it's virtually impossible to get it right the first time every single time. So you try something out and then you kind of fix it and you kind of adjust it. So that's something that you're going to see over and over again. All right, so we got the score. So we're almost done with the game. The only part that is left is actually to make something happen when you click the cookie. Nothing is happening yet. So let's take a look at how we can do that. Okay, so Remember, we've been using something called functions for some time now, but I haven't really told you what it is. So it says function here. Now, what does that mean? Well, there's a var keyword here, and right after that, we can actually create a variable, right? So it's kind of similar here with the function. We're writing function, we're telling JavaScript, create a function, and then call it this. This is the name of the function, setup. And then if there's any inputs or anything like that, you can put it between these, but for these two, there aren't. So it's just blank, but you have to put these brackets here. And then these things, these curly brackets, is what tells you what is the code inside of the function. So you have a starting curly bracket here, and then you have the contents of the function, and then you close it like that. But what really is a function? Let's try to create our own function. And then maybe we can understand better what a function is. Let's go here at the end of the code, and then I'm going to write function. Okay, so let's think about this now. You're creating a game, right? And maybe you want to add some functionality, like whenever the main player and the enemies collide, the enemy is supposed to kill the main player. So there's some things that can happen. The player will die, and then so maybe there is some text on the screen that appears, and then maybe the screen goes red, and then it says you died, and then your score is reset, for example. Now that functionality is something that you need a lot of times in your game, right? It could be several times, because whichever different enemies you make, you need that functionality. So let's say that you figure out the code for that functionality, and it's 5 lines of code. Now, let's say that you want to use it 50 different times in your code. You could just copy and paste that code 50 different times and use it, right? Yeah, well, that would work. That's not being a very good programmer, because programmers try to avoid copying and pasting whenever they can. So a much better way of doing that would be taking those 5 lines of code that does the thing that you want to do, putting it inside of a function, and then giving it a name, like kill player, for example. And whenever you want that functionality, you just call that function. So you've already written what the function looks like only once, and whenever you want it, you just call it. So that's really what a function does. So let's see here. We're going to create our own little function so that we can make the score go up whenever we click here. Now, this function is a special function because it's something that gets picked up by P5. So we're going to call it this, mouse pressed, like this. And you have to call it mouse pressed. Remember the capital P here. And then, of course, because it's a function, I'm going to say these brackets. I have to write that in functions. And then I'm going to write curly brackets here. And then inside, this is where I can write what's going to go inside of the function. So what do I want to do when the mouse is pressed? Because this function is going to get called whenever the mouse is pressed. So whenever you press use the cursor to press on the canvas, whatever is inside of this is going to get called. Now, what do we want to do when the mouse is pressed? Well, we want to increase the score by 1. So let's say in here, score equals. Now we're saying give the score a new value of something. Now, what do we want that to be? Well, it could be anything really. You could say something like 100. Let's see what happens here. If you go here and you refresh, if we press, the score is going to be 100. So this works, but what's going to happen when you press it again? Still 100. Still 100. Nothing happens. That doesn't help us really much. So can we put something else here? What if you wanted to put your name there just for some weird reason? Well, you could do that. But remember, if you just put your name here, like I'll put my name here, it's not going to work because I don't have that quotation marks like we had to have here. We have to have that. For any type of text that you want to display, you always want to use quotation marks. And a fancy name for this kind of thing is a string. So if I refresh now and I press this, it's now going to say my name. So you can really change it to almost anything. Now, but that's not what we want. We want it to be one more than whatever it was before. So what if we could use the old value of score and then add one to it? Well, we can actually do that, because if we say score equals score, then we can say +1. So this is saying whenever you press the mouse, give score a new value of whatever the old value of score was +1. So let's see if this works. Refresh, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and there we go. It works. It works. Awesome. Great. So this is how you make a very simple version of Cookie Clicker. Now, you can probably figure out that there's like several bugs, or rather problems with this game. Because what if you were to press here? It still works. Even though you're not pressing the cookie, it still works. And why is that happening? Well, remember how computers were very, very literal things? What did we say here? We said function mouse press. This is going to always go up. Doesn't matter if you press it here or here, anywhere. If you press it, even here, it's going to go off. So that's a bit of a problem. We're not going to fix this in this one, but in a future video, in a next version of Cookie Clicker, we'll show you how to do that. And that is how you make a simple game using JavaScript. I really hope you enjoyed watching this tutorial, and I hope you learned a lot. This is one of the more beginner-friendly tutorials we have. If you want to see more tutorials, please feel free to look for more tutorials on our YouTube channel, but also check out our website, CurlyBrackets.no. There you'll find a lot more tutorials, and we're also we've ordered them in such a way so that you can go from the more beginner-friendly tutorials to more and more advanced, so that you can watch them in order like that. So yes, please check out our website, CurlyBrackets.no, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.